turtles are in my room. Jimmy, what do you do? Oh, right.
Yashodnandana Braja Janaranjana Natiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yashodnandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yashodnandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yashodnandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yashodnandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatiravanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Peshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Garadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam class of the famous Radha Govinda temple. Only one in the whole world. Today we are reading from the third canto, 13th chapter, entitled The Appearance of Lord Varaha, text 33, which is without purport, and then I will attempt to say something on the text 34th. So I will just chant the first one, just the Sanskrit, once, and the translation, and then we can chant together the next one. Tamala nilam sita danta kotya kshmam utksipantam gaja lilayanga Gyaya badanja layon nivakair virinchi mukya upatas shur isham. Just translation. Then the Lord, praying like an elephant, suspended the earth on the edge of his curved white tusks. He assumed a bluish complexion like that of a tamala tree. And thus the sages, headed by Brahma, could understand him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offered respectful obeisances on the Lord. Text 34. Okay, now repeat after me. Rishaya uchuhu jitam jitam te jitayagya bhavana trayintanum svam paridun vate namaha yadroma garteshu niluyur adayas tasmai namakarana sukarayate. Jitam jitam te jitayagya bhavana trayam tanusvam paridunvate namaha yadromagarteshu niloyur adayas tasmai namakarana sukarayate. Jitam jitam te jitayagya bhavana trayim tanum svam paridunvate namaha yadromagarteshu niloyur adayas tasmai namakarana sukarayate. Please repeat. Ishaya uchu jitam jitam te jitayagya bhavano trayim tanum sampariduvade namaha tasmai namakarana sukarayate. Yadromagarteshu niloyur adayas tasmai namakarana sukarayate. Jitam te jitayagya bhavana trayim tanum svam paridunvate namaha yadromagarteshu niloyur adayas tasmai namakarana sukarayate. Mataji? Jitam jitam te jitayagya bhavana trayim tanum svam paridunvate namaha yadromagarteshu niloyur adayas tasmai namakarana sukarayate. Okay. Translation word by word. Rishaya uchuhu. The glorified sages uttered. Jitam. All glories. Jitam, O victories, Te, unto you. Ajita, O unconquerable one. Yagya Bhavana, one who is understood by performances of sacrifice. Traim, personified Vedas. Tanum, such a body. Svam, own. Paridunvate, shaking. Namaha, obeisances. Yat, whose. Roma, hairs. Garteshu, in the holes. Nililyu, submerged. Adaya, the oceans. Tasmai, unto him. Namaha, offering obeisances. Karana Sukaraya, unto the hog form, assumed for reasons. Te, unto you. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Joy. O the sages uttered with great respect, O unconquerable enjoyer of all sacrifices, O glories and all victories unto you. You are moving in your form of the personified Vedas, and in the hair hose of your body, the oceans are submerged. For certain reasons, to uplift the earth, you have now assumed the form of a boar. The Lord can assume any form He likes, and in all circumstances He is the cause of all causes. Since His form is transcendental, He is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as He is in the casual ocean, in the form of Mahavishnu. Innumerable universes generate from the host of His bodily hairs, and thus His transcendental body is the Vedas personified. He is the enjoyer of all sacrifices, and He is the unconquerable Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is never to be misunderstood to be other than the Supreme Lord, because of His assuming the form of a boar to leave the earth. That is the clear understanding of sages and great personalities like Brahma and other residents of the higher planetary systems. Translation again. O the sages uttered with great respect, O unconquerable enjoyer of all sacrifices, all glories and all victories unto you. You are moving in your form of the personified Vedas, and in the hair hose of your body, the oceans are submerged. For certain reasons, to uplift the earth, you have now assumed the form of a boar. So the Lord can assume any form He wants, and He can manifest Himself to anybody as He likes. And we see in the pages of the Bhagavatam, He has done many times this act of manifestation when He's manifesting His transcendental body. Sometimes, like my Guru Maharaj says, we see the hand of Krishna in our life, for example. We can see the limbs of Krishna. We can see the beauty of Krishna in nature, for example. In the 10th canto, it is described that the beauty of nature is the smile of Krishna. And in so many ways, the Supreme is manifesting in our lives. And He's manifesting Himself among animals, Prabhupada explains in one lecture. We know he has different other incarnations, like, do you know Hari? Hadai Prabhu? Some of the other incarnations of the Lord. Nrsimhadev incarnates like a cat, like a big cat. Do you know some, Jimmy? Like what? What is Vamana? Dwarf, yes. Some other animal incarnation, you know? Matsya, yes. What is Matsya? The fish incarnation. Can you imagine? The Lord came to save all the fish, maybe. He came as Kurma. Do you know Kurma? The turtle, yeah. In ISKCON we have Kurma Das Prabhu, who is also a great cook. So he reminds us of the transcendental turtle form. And of course these forms are extraordinary. They are not like the animals that we see in the wilderness. Just like our bodies are coming out of the image of the original body of Krishna, but of course our bodies are mundane. So in the same way, Krishna incarnates in these different forms in order to attract all the living entities. He has an incarnation, for example, even in plant life. Imagine you go to the Amazon and you see some super beautiful flower or some mysterious tree. That might be the Supreme Lord, you never know. Or you're taking care of the rats, killing rats, and you never know that might be the form of the Lord, so we gotta be careful. He can incarnate and to attract all the rats and liberate them. They're also jiva, spiritual souls. So you never know when you try to kill a rat and then four-armed form of Mahavishnu comes out with the Sudarshan chakra and quits. Ititi Bhagavan. Do you know about Ititi Bhagavan, Prabhu? Our guest. When we receive a guest in our house, that is Bhagavan who has taken a disguise of an ordinary human being. So many stories in the Vedas. Krishna coming to test his devotees, to see their devotion. And the Vedic culture is so wonderful. Even the enemy is to be treated nicely when he comes to your home as a guest. We see in the Mahabharata when Duryodhana, I think, came to Arjuna and or vice versa. Yes, Arjuna came to Duryodhana, even though they were about to have the biggest fight in the whole history of the Dvapara Yuga. Still, Vedic reception. Come in, warm words, sit down, a little bit of water, some sweets, because you never know. Might be Bhagavan coming. So in this way, the mystical nature of the Lord is explained. And of course we can see the Lord only when He reveals Himself to us. Because people sometimes they want to see the Lord, they're demanding, where is God? Because we're preaching, we're going outside and speaking about Krishna and how everything is created by Him, everything is directed by His energies, and they're like, why is this nonsense? Where is this Krishna? I don't see any God. But Prabhupada said clearly that, of course, God is not so cheap. God won't come to show Himself to to a rascal who is living his life to exploit the riches of God. Just like if you want to see the President of the United States, you cannot demand that the President of the United States comes to you. Who are you? You have to get qualified. At least you have to, as a beginning, you have to make some friends with his closest circle. Then maybe they can introduce you to him. And in the same way, we also follow this principle that we are serving the servants of God. In this way, they can recommend us into the chain. And like for example, when Narada Muni in his previous body, when he finally got liberated from his family entanglement, he went to the forest. And he was very distressed, and in that distressed condition, he was able to chant with humility and with feeling, and the Lord revealed himself in his heart, and he became completely ecstatic. But that was just for an instance. And then the Lord disappeared again. Then Narada Muni, he continued to try to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Come on! But nothing was happening. Because the Lord is not obliged to come. Even if we're chanting the best of our rounds, even when they were having intimate pastimes with the gopis and Mother Radharani, he disappeared at once because he wanted to show that he is completely independent, completely detached. And so the human form of life is by default designed for understanding the supreme absolute truth. Every person has a little bit of appreciation of the opulences of nature, for example. Everybody is Krishna conscious to some extent, so to say. Different type of people have different level of consciousness and realization. As we know, there are 8,400,000 species of life, among which 400,000 of species of life are human form, and among them there are many gradations also. Just a small percentage civilized human form of life. Some of these species are just tribal people who also can have a realization. As we know, maybe in the history books, when I was going to school, they were teaching us how the tribal people, they were seeing the lightning and they were like bowing down to the lightning because they were seeing how it's striking a tree, for example, and fire everywhere, or hurricanes. And so people like this, they can appreciate these magnificent manifestations of nature, which are ultimately opulences of the energies of God. And for some people, for example, or for the animals, God is realized in something really basic as food, annamaya. Some people are so engrossed in material life, they're still on the animalistic platform, they're just trying to survive. Even in New York, for example, in such a developed and so-called civilized city, so many people are just trying to survive, just, fearing that they might not have anything to eat next month, what to speak for the rest of the world. In South America, so many poor people, or in Africa, they can't think of something more complex than having a little bit of rice, some corn maybe, some dough, chapatis. And that's how God manifests himself in their lives. And so in this way we can understand and appreciate this propensity of the human form of life. And for example, Prabhupada, he was expert in finding, in understanding the person's realization and finding the spark, so to say. That is the best thing for a preacher, to be personal and to deliver the message accordingly, according to time, place, and circumstances. By understanding the person, by understanding his realizations, what is his position, what is his emotional state, what are his desires, and connecting with him accordingly, connecting him with Krishna. Just like there was this, I don't know it nicely in details, I'm sure Hans Rupa Prabhu knows it, so when he comes back we can ask him to tell us this story. When Prabhupada was meeting this racer, he was a famous racer, rally driver or something, and the devotees were there also, and so Prabhupada approached this person. I think he was a good one, a famous racer, and they were just having a normal conversation, and the devotees, they were expecting that Prabhupada would start to preach like straightforwardly, you're not this body, you have to surrender to Krishna, you're living a lie, this is nonsense, why are you driving this car, But no, Prabhupada, he was very friendly with him, and he asked him, when you're driving the car, do you go very fast, like extreme speeds? And he said, yes, this is the main thing. And Prabhupada asked him, but then when you're on such a high speed, can you control it sometimes? Can you control the turning? And he responded, sometimes you can't control it, sometimes it's very difficult. And so Prabhupada asked him, so when you're driving and you have such a moment where it's too fast and you can't do anything, what do you do? And he responded, well, I just think about God, I pray to God. And Prabhupada told him, okay then, you can race for God. And in this way Prabhupada showed how to be relevant and how to understand the person in front of us, which we are facing, and gain his sympathy. And for us, the fundamental thing to understand is that the Lord is the impersonification of sacrifice, of his yagya, as we have seen in the verses of this chapter, Varahadev or yagya. So to understand the principle of sacrifice to the Lord, who is the only enjoyer of all these acts of sacrifice. So the greatest challenge for us in the West, especially, is to understand this principle and to develop faith in the scriptures, which are actually non-different from the transcendental body of the Lord, Yagya. Like, for example, many times it happens that devotees, they are following nicely, chanting the mantra and raising up early. But still, there are so many challenges on the path of bhakti. So many times we have doubts, shall I listen to the Swami? Does he actually know? He seems a grumpy guy, an old and grumpy guy. Shall I use a gamsha instead of blanket? Blankets are muchi, actually. That's why Vaishnavas are using gamshas. It's very easy to clean. You can rinse it every time you have a shower. Shall I clean the place where I ate, even though I didn't mess it up with prasadam or with anything? It's just clean. Why should I clean it? But yes, there is subtle cleanliness. This is explained in the Vedas. It's a part of Vaishnava culture. Shall I study the verses? Is it necessary? This is just for the scholars. No, everybody should study verses. It's one of the austerities of speech, to chant verses, to speak pleasantly. So, shall I send my kids to Gurukul to get a Vedic education? If I send them there, they won't get a degree. So how are they supposed to function then in the world? How can they get a job? But so many doubts like this because we don't have complete faith in the Vedas, which is actually 100% true, because as I was mentioning, the Vedas are not different from the body of the Lord, which is Yagya, the enjoyer of all sacrifices. And all the sacrifices that we are making are only worthy if we're doing it for the satisfaction of the Lord. And every detail, every small thing we find in the culture, in the spiritual culture of Vaishnavism, the etiquette and the way one behaves, the way one does things, the refinement of character, the following of the senior devotees, all these small things contribute slowly to understand the Supreme. For some, it's slow, for some, it's fast. And it's all depending on this very simple yet so difficult principle to just follow humbly, to just be strict with all these small things like raising up early and being nice with the devotees, having appropriate relationships with our friends, with our superiors. So many little things are there which can make a difference over a period of time. And I remember when Navinanirda Prabhu was giving a class here some weeks ago. he was explaining the same point. I really like his point and his explanation. He was saying that many people here are confused. They're not convinced that this is the right thing to do, that this mission, this project that we're having, this great opportunity, is the right thing. There is always some kind of dilemma. Shall I do my service in time? Shall I come exact there? Shall I give my money to the temple? Shall I give in charity to these devotees? Are they even serious? Is this really the higher taste? It's so bitter that I'm not convinced. It's just bitterness. They say in the beginning it's bitter, but then it will become sweet, but it's only bitter and bitter and bitter, again and again and again. Doing the same thing, but not getting much. So austere. Of course it's austere when somebody is sleeping 12 hours a day, for example. It becomes very austere. When one is cultivating unclean habits, when one is procrastinating, or we can say technically associating with the tamasic qualities of material nature. When one is associating with mundane people, asat sanga tyaga, Mahaprabhu said, that is the Vaishnava, one who associates only with Vaishnavas and who renounces all other worldly associations. One who is watching TV or spending time in unfavorable environments, just being outside. Just one step outside, immediately you're seeing all these billboards which are completely diverting your attention. They're seducing you to enjoy the world. And the result is, as I said, very difficult, very, very bitter process. But there is no question of good result because the equation is faulty. If we're not doing properly our homework, then what is the point of going to school? Jimmy, if you're going to school and then you have to do your homework, you have to pass the exam, but then if you're not doing your homework, then what is the use of going to school, right? You're just wasting your time, you're wasting other people's time, and just go do something else. I don't know. But if you want to do this, then be serious. Understand the principles. Understand that this is a very, very serious project. All these devotees like Hadai Prabhu, who are going every day, they're going and they're saving the world, actually. As weird as it sounds, The Americans thought that a person who is bitten by a spider is a hero, or a person who's a bat-like creature, Batman, the heroes of nowadays. But no, the heroes of nowadays are wearing dhoti and they're having books in their hand. And they're living in the temple. These are the heroes. And anyone who is sapping the activities of this organization, of this team, he is just greatly deceiving himself. He's just a rascal. Yes, this is the position. He's very foolish to be negligent and to be, how can we say, incorrect in participating in this mission. So that is why we have to come back to the basics and understand the philosophy and just try to follow, try to develop some humility. Only those who develop this necessary humility and follow in the footsteps of the greatest Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, and not only him, but his present disciples, who are also great Acharyas, only those can understand the mystery of Bhakti Yoga, and only those can really succeed in life. It is really simple, but it is really difficult to be simple, because we are complex, we are entangled in the complexities of this miserable world. That's why we are confused. But we have the opportunity to dissipate all this darkness in our mind. We have the opportunity every day, every moment, every instance. So take the medicine even though it's bitter, and follow the directions of the doctor. Of the doctors even, we have so many doctors. We have our seniors, we have so many spiritual leaders in our movement. Just take guidance from them, just try to be friends with the devotees, just develop trust in them, in their instructions. Even the smallest things, like I said, even just following a simple thing like wearing, like I said, gamsha instead of a blanket, or developing some clean habits, can make such a big difference and can bring so much satisfaction to the community of devotees. And in this way, one is getting the bhakti points, which will boost him and which will give him the higher taste for which we are always hankering. Otherwise, very painful, very bitter medicine, just prolonging the sufferings. So, this is what I wanted to say. Sorry if I became a little bit pessimistic in the end, but if there are some comments or questions, corrections, you're free to ask. Now, Mataji.
Thank you for the nice class. Something you mentioned that about Srila Prabhupada's preaching, that it's not, he wasn't like always just giving the philosophy to the people and, excuse me. So, well, I can understand Srila Prabhupada is a pure devotee. To what extent we can do such thing? Because there are so many, to what extent can we just be friends with people who are not devotees? Like giving them our association, and supposedly they'll become devotees. Well, my question is how not to fall kind of victim to, because it's very strong, all these things what karmas do.
Yeah, very, very valid question. When our preachers are going out and they're meeting all kinds of people, they have to meet it because this is what Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur were doing, basically. They were going door to door and they were asking everybody to chant. Just like Mahavishnu Maharaj, he's meeting all kinds of crazy people and he's just asking everybody to chant the mantra. Or the book distributors are always engaging in talking with people, and yeah, there is danger. Danger is always there. There is no guarantee. But what was explained in one of the lectures in the previous months, if I'm not mistaken, Chandrasekhar Maharaj maybe was explaining how we are associating with people when we are agreeing to their proposals. So we have to learn the art of just avoiding this. When we're speaking to a person, when he's sharing his material bhav, his likings, we shouldn't be appreciating them. Because at the moment when we appreciate his aspirations, that is the moment when we get drawn into the wrong association, so to say. So our duty is to listen to the person and just try to instead allowing him to drag us to hell, we have to drag him to heaven. So in this way, like I was speaking about Prabhupada, we can also try to spiritualize the conversation, bring in. Many times you cannot say Krishna is God, you cannot speak about God, but you can bring some sattvic principles in your conversation, for example. You can speak about Ayurveda and Vastu, and you can speak about just being a good person, because being good is good, and being sinful is bad because you're suffering. And in so many ways we can become the master of the conversation. So in this way we have to take some practice. That's why book distribution is the greatest activity for preaching and also for self-development, because you're going out and you're meeting the world, you're meeting your fears, you're getting constantly smashed, your ego is getting constantly smashed, and in this way one can learn and one can become even expert in giving association, not taking association. I don't know if I'm answering it properly. If you need further clarification, you can ask more. This is my understanding. We can take example from the senior devotees and see how they're doing it. That's also always there. Learning from Vaisheshika Prabhu maybe. And they know how to befriend people without getting spoiled in these mundane conversations. So many times, for example, Bhakti Dylan or Chaitanya, they've been engaging so many times in conversation with people, but they're like, straightforward. They don't want. They are done with this, so they are not getting influenced. They're just distributing books, and people are coming to the Tuesday program because they invite them. They inspire them. This is powerful to inspire somebody to come to a temple to attend a spiritual program. So, it is possible to speak with people, with mundane people, without getting contaminated. Like this. Any other questions? Hadai Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu, for the class. You were mentioning in the beginning of your talk that even Krishna can enter as a mouse incarnation if he wants to. Yes. And how kind of this incarnation of the boar is very bewildering to some people because they don't understand God can be a boar or anything except, man in the sky with a big beard, you know, they think like that. So I was just wondering a point of clarification that when we understand that Krishna can come in any form that he like, and we know that Krishna is completely free to do as he is, but those incarnations to be worshipable, they must be mentioned in Shastra, right? So that like the scheduled incarnations we read in Canto 2, Chapter 9.
Yes.
So, or you know, we open the floodgates to something. Anything could be God. I'm God. You're God. Everybody's God. It comes that philosophy. So, how do we know it is Krishna acting, and how do we know? Because we have to discern through Shastra. So I'm trying to understand.
We have to?
I'm trying to understand that, you know, there's the incarnations, scheduled incarnations, and there's the...
Speak in the mic.
Krishna can come through any he can come as a mouse, he can come as an elephant. So how do we discern through that?
How do we?
Discern. Differentiate. To differentiate.
How do we differentiate between?
The scheduled incarnations and the fact that Krishna can do whatever as he pleases. He can come as a mouse, he can come as...
Well, what I can say is that in the Bhagavatam we have some scheduled incarnation, but how many? How many incarnations do we have? 20, but we know that the Bhagavatam that we have here has 12 cantos, but for example, in the heavenly planets, the Bhagavatam is maybe 60 cantos or so many other cantos. So imagine how much information is there. There's so much more, you know. The Lord has unlimited forms. So for us, this is enough. Even this is too much for one lifetime. What to speak of knowing more. But for the demigods, they know more. They know maybe about the plant incarnation, but there are incarnations of every type, according to the words of Srila Prabhupada. And I don't know if this is answering your question, or you wanted to know something more specific.
Yeah, this in different incarnations, in different Bhagavatams, there's more. So
Yeah.
That helps a lot.
Yeah, so what we know is what we have in our Bhagavatam. We don't know details. We don't even know details, many details about these incarnations, because Bhagavatam gives just the essence, just the most essential information for us. It doesn't go so much into details. Like this. Is it answering your question?
Yeah.
In Lago Bhagavatamrita, more incarnate, 48, yeah. Still, there's so many more.
Hare Krishna Matanga Prabhu. Thank you very much for this super duper awesome Srimad Bhagavatam class. I think actually it surprises me so much how every Bhagavatam class, there's always something for me to learn, some way for me to get a little bit of a better look at myself, my own practice, what I need to work on, different things I can improve on, and how I can apply different parts of Shastra in my own life. I just think very much, I just want to thank you very much, Matanga Prabhu. I was very, very, very happy. And I think Bhagavatam class is super awesome. I really like Bhagavatam class a lot. And I really like the Bhagavatam class you gave, Matanga Prabhu.
Thank you for listening, because if you're not listening, I cannot say these nice words, these nice things.
Yeah.
So it's a combined effort. It's always a teamwork. So as Navirunir the Prabhu was saying, take part of the team. Bhakti Yoga means team play. If you're not a team player, Maya will get you. And she's very expert. And she will crush you.
Yeah. And then I think one part in particular I liked a lot when you're talking about how we have to wait for Krishna to reveal himself. I think sometimes when I'm chanting or just going throughout the day, I'm like trying to somehow or another force some change in like perception or perspective so I can see Krishna more. I think actually, I was reflecting on it, it gets really frustrating because sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't work. I guess the principle is, like as you're saying, is that actually it's not in our ability for Krishna to reveal Krishna. It's Krishna, His own grace, His own mercy to somehow or another elevate our consciousness to allow us to see more of Him, right? So it makes me think very much of what is our own responsibility, and how can we stay in the line, how can we stay in our own lane of what we need to do, what we do, and leave everything else, do our best and leave the rest to Krishna.
Yes, Jimmy, just chant and be happy. Doesn't mean that you will chant and you will become happy. No, that's a misunderstanding. This is an instruction. Chant and be happy. Do the needful to be happy. You have to figure out what do you need to do to be happy. And then chant also. But it's not that by chanting you will be happy, because spiritual life is not about being happy. Quack, 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 quack.
Like everybody said, thank you for the class. My question is, I think more aligned with the brother behind me.
More aligned with?
More aligned, like my question is similar to his.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to assume that the tradition is pantheist, but I know there is a tendency to see God everywhere because God controls everything. But similar to the brother behind me, I would like to know what is a simple way to, because when I see anything beautiful, I think about God. But at the same time, how do I
Speak in the
not?
mic. Speak in the mic.
I don't, oh, yeah, now I can hear myself.
No problem.
I don't know necessarily how to discern or differentiate or tell the difference between something that is reminding me of God and God itself. For example, if I experienced, like you mentioned earlier, some people saw lightning causing fire and was like, wow, that's powerful, that's glorious, and it reminded them of God. But in the process, people can become worshipers of lightning. But that's material. And even though God is the cause of it, it's still material, and the goal is to get out of the material. So how do we discern from looking at something and seeing its greatness and focusing on that without losing the essence, which is that it's great that it reminds you of God, but keep in mind it's not God. So my question is more about, like, I guess, idolatry in a sense. Like, how do we prevent ourselves from setting up things and making it our supreme being when their purpose is not to be our supreme being, but to remind us of our supreme being?
Yes, so God is everywhere, in everything. Everything is supported by His innumerable energies and potencies. Even within the atoms, it is said that in the space within the atoms, there are Mahavishnus. There are innumerable Mahavishnus in this room, for example. Everything you see is, or the atoms are connected by the potency of Anantashesh, Mahavishnu. And so God is in everything, God is everywhere, but not everything is God. So that's a very interesting thing, and something that we have to understand. You cannot just take this desk and start worshiping Him because God's inside. It doesn't work like that. And you cannot worship the lightning and say that's God. But of course, the proper understanding is to realize that this is the potency of God. And when one understands this, then he can make steps further to understanding more and more up to the point of understanding his supreme most transcendental form, Satchitananda Vigraha, Sarva Karana Karanam. It is explained in the Bhagavatam that this is the beginning of spirituality, of religion, basically. The initial stages, many people, they're appreciating the Virat Rupa, the universal form of the Lord. They're appreciating the ocean, the sun. They're even worshipping the sun, the sky, death. The Lord is death for the atheists. They all bow down to death. Nobody can resist death. So, in this way, for some people, there's nothing wrong to have this appreciation and then further the research and get more knowledge and realizations, and then come to a bona fide path, which we have. What else I wanted to say? And even it is explained in the Bhagavatam that a man who follows fictitious path of religion, just a speculation, you believe in God and you do your own rituals, you do some witchcraft or I don't know, mumbo jumbo, new age stuff. Even that is better than being an atheist. And even that, by following your own created, from your imagination path, even that is purifying and is satisfying to the Lord, and will eventually give you more and more hints to then make further steps and understand the real religion. For example, even a man who is completely materialistic, by using his intelligence, he can come to understand transcendental principles, for example. That's why the human intelligence is there. The intelligence can be spiritualized, can become transcendental, because a person who suffers in the world, who gets so many experiences, ultimately inquires, why is this happening? Why my family died? And these kind of things. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yes. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, let's end it up here because it's already 10 minutes above. Thank you very much for your kind attention and participation. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Radha Govinda Ki Jai.
Jai.